Good afternoon. We are here for another Mediumship literature group. We meet each other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Everybody is welcome to join us. Just contact me through my Facebook page, Revenant, or my website, revenant.world, and I'll be happy to add you to our live discussions. And it's free of charge, and everybody is welcome. So we are reading and studying now the Book of Spirits by Allan Kardec. We have read and studied the Gospel according with Spiritism, and each week we read a little part of the book and discuss together. So it's very easy to learn. You don't have necessarily homeworks unless you miss a group. Then it's better than you catch up afterwards. But we can always learn things, even if you miss something. It's always important to have this opportunity to learn those precious lessons directly from Spirit. So all those books we are reading are what we call automatic writing. So it's like messages straight from Spirit with guidances and questions and answers about everything that we go through in life as human beings. So it's really important to everyone and it's very useful. So everybody is welcome. So let's do our initial prayer and we are going to start. Dear God, thank you very much for this day, for the opportunity to be here together, learning from you, from those precious lessons straight from Spirit. Help us to learn the things we need to learn, to understand what we are reading, and to put in practice in our daily lives. Help those who are watching us from home, and helping them to be inspired and to learn through those passages as well. Thank you very much for your unconditional love. Amen. All right, so we have stopped last time on chapter 6 from this first book, the part that talks about materialism, question 147. So if you just go through the book and look for question 147, you're going to find it. There are several books in the same book. This book is subdivided or is a collection of several books, but the questions go straight. The chapters start over when a new book starts, but the questions go straight over without interruption. So it's easier to find looking for the question number. This book contains over 1,000 questions and answers from the mediums to the spirits, and the answers are straight from spirits. So, did you find Elizabeth?
I have number 149. It says chapter 3 on mine. Is that right? The soul after death.
You are looking for the page. It's not the page. It's the question number. So there's a page and the question number. It's not page 147. It's the question 147. So the pages change also depending on the edition, but the questions are always the same. That's why it's good to understand the logic of the book so everybody can find and follow regardless of the edition that you have.
I got it, yeah. Okay, materialism.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. All right. Do you want me to read or
if you like, if you can, if you don't, if you're not,
sure.
I can read.
Okay. I'm okay reading. Okay, now 147, materialism. Why is that humanists, philosophers, and in general those who apply themselves to the pursuit of the natural sciences are so apt to fall into materialism? The physiologist refers everything to the standard of his senses. Human pride imagines that it knows everything and refuses to admit that there can be anything which transcends the human understanding. Science itself inspires some minds with presumption. They think that nature can have nothing hidden from them. 48. Is it not regrettable that materialism should be a consequence of studies which ought, on the contrary, to show men the superiority of the intelligence that governs the world? It is not true that materialism is a consequence of those studies. It is a result of the imperfection in which leads men to draw a false conclusion from their studies. For men may make a bad use of the very best things. The idea of annihilation, moreover, troubles those who profess to hold it more than they will allow to be seen, and those who are the loudest in proclaiming their materialistic convictions are often more boastful than brave. The greater number of the so-called materialists are only such because they have no rational ground of belief in future life. Show a firm anchor of rational belief in a future state to those who see only a yawning void before them, and they will grasp it with the eagerness of drowning men. There are those who, through an aberration of the intellect, can see nothing in organized beings but the action of matter, and attribute to this action all the phenomena of existence. They have seen in the human body only the action of an electrical machine. They have studied the mechanism of life only in the play of the bodily organ. They have often seen life extinguished by the rupture of a filament, and they have seen nothing but this filament. They have looked to see whether anything still remained, and as they have found nothing but matter that has become inert, as they have neither seen the soul escape from the body nor been able to take hold of it, they have concluded that everything is reducible to the properties of matter, and that death is consequently the annihilation of all thought. A melancholy conclusion, if such were really the case. Were it so, good and evil would be alike devoid of aim. Every man would be justified in thinking only of himself and of subordinating every other consideration to the satisfaction of his material instincts. Thus all social ties would be broken, and the holiest affections would be destroyed forever. Happily for mankind, these ideas are far from being general. Their area may even be said to be a narrow one, limited to the scope of invidious opinions, for nowhere have they been erected into a system of doctrine. A state of society founded on such a basis would contain within itself the seeds of its own dissolution, and its members would tear each other to pieces like so many ferocious beasts of prey. Man has an intuitive belief that for him, everything does not end with the life of his body. He has a horror of annihilation. No matter how obstinately men may have set themselves against the idea of a future life, there are very few who, on the approach of death, do not anxiously ask themselves what is going to become of them, for the thought of bidding an eternal eternal adieu to life is appalling to the stoutest heart, who indeed could look with indifference on the prospect of an absolute and eternal separation from all that he has loved, who without terror could behold yawning beneath him the bottomless abyss of nothingness in which all his faculties and aspirations are to be swallowed up forever, who could calmly say to himself, After my death, there will be nothing for me but the void of annihilation. All will be ended. A few days hence, all memory of me will have been blotted out from the remembrance of those who've survived me, and the earth itself will retain no trace of my passage. Even the good that I have done will be forgotten by the ungrateful mortals whom I have benefited, and there is nothing to compensate me for all this loss, no other prospect beyond this ruin that than that of my body devoured by worms. Is there not something horrible in such a picture, something that sends an icy chill through the heart? Religion teaches us that such cannot be our destiny, and reason confirms the teachings of religion, but the vague, indefinite assurance of a future existence, which is all that is given us, either by religion or by reason, cannot satisfy our natural desire for some positive proof in a matter of such paramount importance for us. And it is just the lack of such proof in regard to a future life that in so many cases engenders doubt as to its reality. Admitting that we have a soul, many very naturally ask, what is our soul? Has it a form and appearance of any kind? Is it a limited being? Or is it something undefined and impersonal? Some say that it is a breath of God. Others think, or others that it is a spark. Others again declare it to be a part of the greater whole, the principle of life and intelligence. But what do we learn from these statements? What is the good of our possessing a soul if our soul is to be merged in immensity like a drop of water in the ocean? Is not the loss of our individual equivalent, so far as we are concerned, to annihilation? The soul is said to be immaterial, but which is immaterial can have no definite proportions and therefore can have no reality for us. Religion also teaches that we shall be happy or unhappy according to the good or the evil we have done. But of what nature are the happiness or unhappiness that's promised in another life? Is that happiness the state of beatitude in the bosom of God and an external contemplation with no other employment than that of singing the praises of the Creator? And the flames of hell, are they a reality or a figure of speech? The Church itself attributes to them a figurative meaning, but of what nature are the sufferings thus figuratively shadowed forth? And where is the sense of those sufferings? In short, what shall we be? What shall we do? What shall we see in that other world which is said to await us all? No one, it is ever read, has ever come back to give us an account of that world, but this statement is erroneous. And the mission of Spiritism is precisely to enlighten us in regard to the future that awaits us, to enable us within certain limits to see and to touch it, not merely as a deduction of our reason, but through the evidence of facts. Thanks to the communications made to us by the people of that other world, the latter is no longer a mere presumption, a probability, which each one pictures to himself according to his own fancy, which poets embellish with fictitious and allegorical images that serve only to deceive us. It is that other world itself in its reality, which is now brought before us, for it is the beings of the life beyond the grave who come to see us, who describe to us the situation in which they find themselves, who tell us what they are doing, who allow us to become, so to say, the spectators of the details of their new order of life, and who thus show us the inevitable fate which is reserved for each of us according to our merits or our misdeeds. Is there anything anti-religious in such a demonstration? Assuredly not, since it furnishes unbelievers with the ground of belief and inspires lukewarm believers with renewed fervor and confidence. Spiritism is thus seen to be the most powerful auxiliary of religion, and if it be such, it must be acknowledged to exist by the permission of God for the purpose of giving new strength to our wavering convictions, and thus of leading us back into the right road by the prospect of our future happiness.
What did you understand from those things, this part?
Yeah, it brings up the question. Some people say it's, that in religion you're taught not to do this kind of medium work, but the spiritualists believe, it really can help your belief because people, everybody is natural to question about what happens and to actually really get evidence. And it just helps your believe that it really is real. And it just helps strengthen. So there's really nothing wrong at all about it. It's really beautiful. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. And it's not, spiritualism doesn't go against any religion. It's just a step forward in our evolution as human beings, right? Because we are now
Mhm.
ready to get in contact with some realities that were always there, they always existed, but our brain was not ready and our morals were not ready to get in contact with the spiritual world as much as we are now. Not that we are, you know, super well developed yet. We have a long way to go as human beings, but we are more evolved now than we were centuries ago or millennia ago, when beginning of Christianism, beginning of the Muslims religion, beginning of so many religions we have now. And it's just a complement, like you said. It's just a way of helping us to see in such a bright evidence right in front of us. We can perceive with our eyes. We can see the spirits. We can listen to them, we can hear their messages, we can learn from them straight, and they can share their reality, their experiences in the other world. All this help us to understand our own existence, and also make change, turn our spiritual experiences, our religious or not religious experiences, but spiritual experiences for sure, much more tangible and realistic. So there's nothing contradicting about it. It's just like emphasizes and help us to understand things in a more matter of fact way, without presumptions, without distortions, without you know especially the Christian religion has distorted so much the meanings of heaven and hell, and how we go to heaven, how we go to hell, and all this, the nature of God. So because human beings are not perfect, we are subject to pride, we have a very small capacity to understand the universe as a whole. Even with all these scientific developments, we still didn't make a little dent on understanding this whole complex universe that is beyond us. Even in our own reality around us, we don't understand even a little dent of what it really is. So, let alone to explain the existence of our lives, and here and beyond, what it is, our existence, and what's going to happen after we die, and all this kind of stuff. So our brain is not developed enough, and to have the capacity to explain. So we need to learn from them straight from the spiritual world, and it's beautiful. So and the first part where they talk about materialism, what did you understand?
Let's see. Part. Oh, I guess they weren't saying that. I mean, sometimes a physiologist or natural science, a person might get materialistic, but they're saying it's not the science that makes them materialistic, but just their own personal flaws that makes them materialistic. And let's see. Yeah, and to just kind of believe in only the matter and then just seeing it not existing, to think that that's just the end of our life. Then if we only thought, I just have a few more years to live and this is it, then I might get more materialistic because I just try to do whatever I can for right now, not thinking about what could, or believe that there is. And then I might start thinking, well, what good is it if I'm doing good to help others? Or, you start maybe getting just living for yourself and just to think that nobody's going to really even remember you. That just is be a sad and terrible way to, just think that no one's going to remember me, so
Yeah.
that would be, but we do have intuition, that, I mean, the religion does say that it keeps going, but then, we have intuition that there is more, but then we don't really know for sure, I guess, until you've had the contact with spirits. But I think man has a heart too of that. Just it's just going to be it for them, and in this life, and then you just dissolve.
Mhm. I know exactly. It's you have made brought up very important points of this passage and all those important things that they brought to us, the negative consequences of materialism and stuff. And yes, one very important point that you brought right in the beginning is the fact that it's not the science necessarily that brings the perspective of materialism, but our imperfections, our own flaws as human beings that inflates ourselves with pride and having the pretense that what we don't see doesn't exist and what we don't understand doesn't is not there. So let's imagine asking a blind person to describe colors of or light, right? Someone that has never had eyes, has never had sight, has been born blind, has never had the experience to see anything with their eyes, how they can understand really what is color, what is light, what is everything. The shapes perhaps because they can touch, but there are so many things, so many shapes in the universe that we cannot, is a consequence of not of just seeing, is not touchable. And so how can a blind person understand and explain light and color? It's the same situation of us as human beings saying that, okay, we are, let's say we're all blind, which we are, when there are some things about the universe that we are blind for because our senses are not developed enough to see or to perceive, but it doesn't mean that doesn't exist. So the fact that color or the light doesn't exist for the blind person doesn't mean that the color and the light doesn't exist, period. Right? So other people that are not blind can see the color and the light. So it's not because of that blind person that cannot see that the light and the color doesn't exist. So it's the same thing with so many phenomena, including the life after that, the existence of spirit, spiritual existence, our spiritual nature, um, is the same thing with some sectors of science, especially centuries ago. Nowadays, the more modern science is much more open, is not as materialistic, because with the development of quantum physics, for example, there are so many things that are coming together with religion. So quantum physics nowadays understand energy much better than we had centuries ago, and understand that the center of matter is energy, and the thought is energy, our feelings are energy that produces effects on the matter, and is the center of the matter. So the spiritual and the matter, the spiritual is the essence of matter. So matter is not uh, and non-matter are not something contradictory. If you believe in spirits, you believe in energy that is beyond matter, you are not contradicting science through those new discoveries and developments. Is just something else that now we are able to see with the development of mathematics, with the development of new technology, where we can see smaller and smaller particles of the universe, and we can see the center of the atom, which is energy. So it's beautiful to see how the more we evolve as human beings, morally and neurologically, through the law of evolution, the more we become closer to God and to understanding the spiritual world. So it's not show we don't need to choose science or religion. Is a matter of both of them, and understanding both of them in a deeper way, in a more evolved way, and the contradiction just disappears. The conflicts just disappear. You don't need to choose between evolution or creation, because the creation is the evolution. Like God created the evolutionary process. So the description on the Bible that of the creation is just allegorical, is just symbolic. God didn't create the world in 7 days. It was just periods, steps, and eras of the evolution of the universe, which was governed by God. God had the idea, God had the creation of all those things that we have, and we have now in the universe, matter and no matter. And the evolution is part of it. So the same evolution that we see on the species, on the ecosystems, on the nature, over time, that is also true for the spirits. And that's the reason why we have uh, lives the way we have. Like everything is a continuum, right? So then when we have this concept that our spirit is eternal, that this material life is just a little part of it, but it's not all of it, doesn't it's not the end of it, that our spirit is eternal, and we keep coming back to evolve, to learn new lessons, and to grow until we become perfect. It makes perfect sense. It makes much more sense to understand our lives, to understand why there are so many differences in the lives of people, why some people, excuse me, why some people are have like such a hard lives, with people are born defective, in some way handicapped, or with some kind of mental disorder like mental retardation or stuff, and some other people are born geniuses and have such an easy life. So all those differences doesn't make sense if you have only one existence, right? It makes sense on the continue of our evolution. Everything that we go through has a meaning and a reason. And the ultimate goal is for all of us to become perfect and happy, because happiness, 100% happiness, comes from perfection of the spirit, comes from perfection of our soul. And we all have the same chance. We all have the opportunities to go through different trials depending on our choices in each step of our evolution that leads to different consequences. We all go through trials in order to evolve, and if we utilize our trials in a way that are constructive, that we can grow spiritually and grow closer to God, the less we're going to suffer. So the faster is going to be our process of evolution. So it's so beautiful. And so we are, there's any other question or comment, Elizabeth, about all those things we have read?
I don't think so. I think you summed it up very good. It doesn't have to be a choice of science or, religion or science, and it all complements each other. And
it's such a relief, right? Because for all of us who grew up in a Christian churches, I learned so much from the church, and I'm grateful that I had this experience. But it in some aspects created so many conflicts, right?
Yeah.
Conflict, like things that we could not question whatsoever. We didn't really make sense, but we could not question because questioning was a sign of a sin, right? It was a sin.
Yeah.
And so there's such a feeling of hopelessness in some things, that the way that is not about nothing to do with the Bible itself, what Jesus taught us, or even the Old Testament, is about the way it was interpreted in the church and taught to us, that made conflict, created the conflict and the lack of sense. So it's wonderful when you come across spiritualism, where all those things are put to prove and put and clarified. And it's not that they contradicted the Bible or came to overrule the Bible. It's just a different perspective and a better understanding of the true meaning of the Bible, and making things totally, smooth, and eliminating all the conflicts. So it's very, it brings a sense of peace and an internal harmony, which is so important for us, right? So we don't need to choose between our secular life and our church life, where there's no difference. So we can see the spiritual aspects of everything: eating, making money, sex, everything that has a spiritual meaning, and everything also can be used or experienced or expressed in a very vulgar and mundane way. Even going to church and praying, it all depends on how we do it, what's the intention behind it, and which kind of motive we have behind whatever we do. So it's not the thing itself that's bad or good, it's how we do it in our hearts. And even when we have conflicts, and for example, as a psychologist, I have a lot of clients with OCD, where they have intrusive thoughts and they think things that are wrong. They have the impulse of things that are you know, that lead us to do harm or to do wrong things. That, but it's a conflict. They don't want to do it. They don't want to think those things. It's a disease that comes. You know, they suffer. But even in those cases, there's always like ways of, you know, uh, making choices and, you know, uh, choose the actions that you have, you opt in your life, and that's what is important. And God knows everything. God knows what is a disease. God knows what is not a disease, and that's how he bases judgment, and he helps us. Of course, he's merciful, and he knows what we are going through in every, absolutely every aspect of our lives, every circumstance, and every whatever way we are going through. So for every challenge we face, doesn't matter what they are, God is always there to give us a hand, and he's always loving. And that's beautiful thing about, you know, when you come across spiritualism, because there's no eternal hell whatsoever, ever. There's always
That's good.
there's always a hope, and there's always a way out. All we need to do is to ask for help, and God is right there. Even when we don't see the end of the path, or the way out, there's a way out, and we just ask for help, and the help always come. It's beautiful. So and that's something that spiritualism brings in a very strong way, you know, because we have the very close contact with the spiritual world and with our guides and even with God. When we sit in a power, right, we see the change in our body, we see the change in our mind, the energy shifts right away, and we can have a little glimpse of heaven every time we do that, and it's so beautiful. And the more we do that, the more we learn and we grow little by little, and let's see, we know we are in a different place in our lives. So um, all right, so we are at the end of our group. We are going to continue on chapter 7 next time in 2 weeks, which is going to talk about the return to the spiritual life. So the transition from one incarnation to the spiritual world. Um, and let's see what the spirits have to teach us. So we are going to do our final prayer. And for those who are watching us from home, we meet each other week on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Everybody's welcome to join us. Just contact me through my Facebook page, Revenant, or my website, revenant.world, and I'll be happy to add you to our free mediumship literature group for our live discussions. So thank you for being with us. Let's do our final prayer. Dear God, thank you very much for this day, for this wonderful opportunity to be here together, learning from you through those passages and those special, precious lessons straight from Spirit. Thank you for helping us to make sense of our existence and to make sense of our existence hereafter, our eternal existence as spirit. And this way, helping us to live our lives in a better way and to know what to do, to know um, who we are and what's the meaning of our lives here. Um, Thank you for your unconditional love and for your guidance every single day. Please help us to put in practice these things we learn through those readings. And thank you for your unconditional love. Amen. All right, I'll see you all in 2 weeks here on in our live discussions through Zoom. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.